Hi everyone, and welcome to episode number 36 of Perfect Inspiration. My name is Brian Matiusz. So today we're going back, all the way back to 2010, during my first trip to easily my favorite abandoned place, and that's called Belchertown State School. And I was going through my archive. I try to do that every so often just to kind of keep things fresh. I never am opposed to going back to an image that I worked on and try again with new skills and new tools. And this is one of them. But that's not why I came to this image. Actually, I came to this image because I thought it was a really good lesson. I remember when I was shooting in Belchertown, I spent all of my time, or most of the time, especially on this first trip, shooting wide. At the time I think I had my Canon 16 to 35 millimeter lens, and so I was shooting at 16 and I was pulling everything in. And it was actually, in retrospect, it was kind of a mistake because it wasn't until after a few hours that I realized these shots here, these small detail shots really tell the story. I remember walking by this particular door. I'll never forget it because I looked at the detail and the scratch marks on this keyhole, the key lock, and it freaked me out. That plus the scratches up here and the peeling paint here, it just all told the story of a really horrific place. And so for that place, I actually have it up here. This is Belchertown, Massachusetts, and this entire complex right here used to be kind of a mental facility, and not a lot of fun things happened here. You can search on Wikipedia for details, but it really wasn't a good time. And so if we zoom in, you can see the complex of buildings I shot in. This building, a few of these scattered buildings. Some of them were locked up. You really couldn't get into them. But this building right here, this is like the Mac Daddy of the entire place. This is the main auditorium. The door that I actually shot was on this side, actually, somewhere around here. I remember it was a bit further away from the entrance. We entered from a door right here and kind of spent hours shooting. Here is a street view of that auditorium. Unfortunately, it's the street images, which I'm even surprised there are any. There's a lot of overgrown vegetation, so you can't even see it, but that's kind of where it was, and kind of see what we had to contend with. Very easy to get ticks and whatnot, and also during the winter this place gets slammed with snow. So that's Belchertown State School. And so what I wanted to do here was start working on the image in Perfect Effects. But before I do, when I first originally posted this image, I don't remember how, maybe a year or 2 years ago when I posted it, I actually tone mapped it for an HDR image, and that's one of the things. By going back, I look at this image and I think there's absolutely no reason why I should have tone mapped. There's nothing here that tone mapping would benefit this image. But what I will do is I will go to the develop module over here because I want to bring out some of the shadow details. I want to fix up my histogram first. And so to do that, I'm going to press and hold the Option key or the Alt key. So if you have a Mac, press and hold the Option key. If you have a PC, it's the Alt key. And drag on these sliders here. Now for me, I'm going to start with the black point. So I'm going to click here, and you can see on the bottom right there's some kind of black fuzz. So I'm going to bring it out a bit until some of it goes away, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the shadows. Now with the white point, I'm going to drop that down a bit, or actually I'm going to bring that up rather, and the highlights, I'm going to bring that out a bit as well. And so what we're able to do is get this, and if you look at the histogram here, we have a really nice range of tone. So originally, and I'm going to hit the backslash key. The backslash key is above the return or enter key, and it shows you the original. So look at the details. We're able to bring out a lot more detail here. I'm also going to bring the overall exposure up a bit. And you can see that I still have absolutely no blown out highlights or clipped shadows. If anything, it's a bit bright, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to bring out some of that shadow detail before I start stylizing in Perfect Effects. And so with that done, I'm happy with what I have here. I'm going to right click, go to Edit In, and select Perfect Effects 4 to begin stylization. All right, so for stylization, what I'm looking for is to really accentuate the color, the contrast, and the clarity. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the movie looks category on the left here. I'm going to scroll down to an effect called Moulin Rouge, which was based kind of off the cinematic qualities of the movie. So with Moulin Rouge, you can see here it's doesn't look very good. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to change the blending mode by clicking on the options button, and I'm going to go over to soft light. And you can see how even just by going from normal to soft light, there's an improvement there, but I'm going to bring this amount to 0, and I'm only going to use about 40%. Now I'm going to click add to continue, and I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm going to go to the landscape category, and at the bottom here there's an effect called Vecchio. Now Vecchio is primarily being used here for the wood. I really like kind of the warmth that it brings the wood. I'm going to keep it 100%, and I'm going to take my masking brush from the tool well here, and I'm going to press invert. So that essentially hides the effect. Now what I'm going to start doing is, first, I'm going to turn on the perfect brush, which is at the top over here. I'm going to increase the brush size, decrease the feather, and I'm going to start painting in. Now because I have the perfect brush activated, I have kind of this edge detection, kind of an edge control. And so what I'm doing is I'm only painting in what looks like this kind of copper or brass plate. I'm going to make a small brush here, and I'm just going to kind of go around the nail heads. So I got that going on over here, which is really great. And I'm just going to go down here onto the wood. And so because I've got this perfect brush on, I don't have to worry really about the masking going on to the blue part. The blue sections here we're actually going to treat in a second. But the perfect brush to me, easily one of the greatest features of Perfect Photo Suite 7 because it makes my masking really a lot easier. So I'm just going to kind of go through here, and it's kind of a slightly tedious process, but this is one of my favorite images because it gives me an opportunity to really refine small areas here. And this really pays off when you're done. By doing these little minor edits, the image really will stand out as opposed to rather just pancaking effects one on top of the other. It really just kind of starts to lose characteristic if you do that. But here what I'm doing is, because I'm taking the time to just add Vecchio to specific areas, it's really going to come together with the finished product. And so here, again, even though it's kind of in the bokeh area with the perfect brush, I'm just kind of painting along here and getting only the wood. It does a really, really nice job of that. Going to get this area here. You want to be kind of meticulous. You want to look through the image and kind of get as much of that information as possible. If there's wood that you can see that's visible, try to get it, because trust me, it's really going to benefit in the end. All right, so with that done, I'm going to click add. I'm going to keep that at 100%, and now I'm going to go back into the movie looks category to apply cyberpunk. I was saying how we're going to deal with the blue in a second, and that's true. So I'm going to go ahead, it's going to apply, and then first thing I'm going to do is take the strength down to 0, and I'm really only paying attention to the key lock and the nail heads and this little bit of blue here. I'm going to bring it up, stopping about maybe 65, 66%. That's good. All right, and just like before, I'm going to take my masking brush, invert, and then make sure I have the perfect brush selected, and I'm just going to start painting on the key lock. So I don't have to worry about the brush going over here. Get this whole thing, get that looking really cool. And then same thing here, just going to kind of click through. Now watch, I'm not actually drawing. All I'm doing is I'm clicking, and you see how it's actually getting those spots? So I'm not drawing. It's easier in these tight areas just to click. And so I do that a lot, with the mask off. I don't need the mask on, but I'm just kind of clicking through, and that makes it a lot easier than having to draw through with a steady hand. As long as so in the middle of the brush here, there's a little crosshair. Whatever color the crosshair lands on, that's the color that's going to get masked through. So I'm just making sure that the crosshair is on, the blue area, not the wood. That way the brush will not mask the wood on. All right, so that's looking good. Let's get this area here, just these little cracks, and then also right through here we'll get this area. Just because I love the way it plays off. This particular effect is easily one of my favorites. Oh, I shouldn't forget these nails up here. All right, so that's really what I wanted to do there with Vecchio and with Cyberpunk. Now I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to go up to a category called Grunge. So let's close this out and go to Grunge. And with Grunge, I'm going to apply an effect that goes all the way back to our Photo Tools days called Just Enough Darkness. So with Just Enough Darkness, the first thing I'm going to do is bring it down to 0, and I think about half of it is good. The only thing I don't want about this effect is the fact it looks like it desaturates a little bit, or removes some of the color. So I'm going to go to my blending mode here, and I'm going to go back to soft light, and I'll keep it like that. That to me looks great. So moving onward, now what I'm going to do is I want to bring out the detail, the tone of just this area here, which is clearly my plane of focus. To do that, I'm going to go to the effect options, and I'm going to go down to the tone enhancer. So what the tone enhancer is going to allow me to do is build my own custom tonal contrast effect. So what I'll start to do is I'm going to bring the local contrast up to about 40%. And that's going to bring a lot of detail. Now you can see it's bringing the detail everywhere. I'm also going to bring up the shadows, just to bring out, or I shouldn't say bring up, I'm going to bring out some of the shadow detail. And now what I want to do is I really only want to restrict it to this area here. So I'm going to take my masking bug, I'm going to click on the image, and I'm going to spread it out a bit. And now basically what's happening is the tone enhancer is applying everywhere but the bug. So I'm going to click on invert. And now it flips it. So only the only place that the tone enhancer is applying to is really right over here, which is exactly what I wanted. Now I'm going to click Add. And to finish things off, really to bring the focus to the this door jamb over here, I'm going to scroll up, go to the glow category, and I'm going to apply an effect called Orton Clean, which is using the effect that Michael Orton kind of founded. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to go back to the tone enhancer here, and I'm going to copy the mask because I only want the Orton to apply to the areas outside of the center. So here I'll go to Mask and Paste Mask. And now you can see that the mask is only applying to the door jamb. So just like before, we're going to go over here to Mask and then Invert Mask. And so now the Orton effect is only applying to the background. I'm going to bring the strength down to 0 and just bring it up maybe about 65, 66%, 69%. That's fine. So this is basically, I call this good. You can see, let's turn the preview off. This was our original image, and see just how much of that detail we brought out over here, especially because look at just the play between the warm and the cool tones. If we turn again the preview off and then on, we bring out a lot of detail. So I'm going to click Apply and return back to Lightroom so that we can finish things off and wrap it up. All right, so here we are back in Lightroom in the Develop module, and you can see really quickly that we have some clipped shadows, blown out highlights just from as a result of the stylization. So I like to attack that first. So just like before, press and hold the Option key or Alt key while dragging. Here, these are the areas that have blown out highlights. So I'm going to bring that down until we see just barely any dots. And then same thing with the shadows. Going to bring those out a bit, as much as I can without really losing too much of it. Having some shadows or clipped shadows, not a problem. It's not a bad thing. It actually adds some drama to the image. I'm going to bring the black point up just a bit though, see if that helps. And here I'm going to bring up the contrast overall and a little bit of a clarity boost. And then I'm also going to bring up the vibrance and drop the saturation just a bit because it was getting a bit too saturated for me. Now the last thing I'm going to do, go to the bottom here, and to draw the eye towards the center, I'm going to use a post-crop vignette. So I'm going to bring that in a bit and really bring the midpoint closer to the center. But I'm also going to increase the feather so that the transition is much more gradual. And so you can see this is pretty much the final image compared to, if we go back to the original. So this is our original image. again, good starting point. We used Lightroom originally just to bring out some of those shadow details before we started stylization, but then we were able to go into Perfect Effects and add really kind of that sense of style, really grungy look. And again, because we took the time to finally mask in the Vecchio on the wood and then the Cyberpunk on the blue areas here, I think it really lends to the image overall. And that perfect brush just makes it super easy. So with that, I hope this episode has been inspirational in terms of just kind of reminding you that when you're out, don't get overwhelmed and look at the small details. Sometimes those small details tell the biggest story. So thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week for episode number 37.